Welcome to the Institute of Jewish Knowledge and Learning. We are investigating commonalities and the wisdom of Sufism in the frame of reference of Jewish mysticism, of Kabbalah. Take it away, Rebbe.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Hello, everybody, and thank you for those that actually sent me messages about the Tisha B'Av teaching yesterday. I appreciated the input. Okay, so friends, last week we ended off with the idea with the it's an idea like worth pondering a little bit. That Sufism from way back. I mean, I have to reiterate that Sufism became popularized after within the times of Muhammad. Okay, which is the 7th and 8th centuries. Just know that historically, but Sufism themselves trace their enlightenment and their enlightened tradition well before Muhammad. So you have to ask me, and you have to ask yourselves. So if it is traceable well before, they said 24,000 years before this tradition existed. So we have to ask ourselves, so how is it that Sufism predominantly, maybe mistakenly, these days is always associated with Islam? And the answer is essential to an understanding of Sufism. It is because the esoteric, the mystical teaching of Sufism is actually a universal type of Kabbalah. Kabbalah, even in the Hebrew, Kabbalah means a receiving. Another way of a synonym for receiving, morphed in English, is called a tradition. Not tradition, not that kind, but a tradition of esoteric knowledge that has been with us since the beginning of time. And that is actually very similar to the Kabbalah. When we talk about Kabbalah, someone might say, well, Kabbalah is the Baal Shem Tov. Kabbalah is represented by the Ari in the 15th century, or by the medieval Kabbalists. The answer is yes and no, because Kabbalah, in its truest sense, goes back through Talmudic ages, through biblical, scriptural, prophetic ages, back to Abraham, back to Isaac and Jacob, back to Noah, back to Adam. The pure idea of Kabbalah is depicted in Jewish mysticism as going back to the first human being, the first model of human being. That's when Kabbalah starts, and then evolves throughout the generations and takes on new meanings depending on the environment, depending on the society, and depending on the year. So in the same way, Sufism claims that their esoteric tradition taka goes back well beyond any culture, beyond any religious institution. It just so happens that the last main religion, the last main tradition, the last main prophet of Sufism happened to have been Muhammad, and that's why Islam and Sufism is mistakenly associated one with the other. And I did mention, I think it's very important to say that within the Sufi Kabbalah, within the Sufi transmission of enlightenment, there is an absolute, I think, beautiful and healthy recognition of prophets like Abraham, Moses, David, Solomon, Jesus, Muhammad, and then the next one that's going to come up. I think it's so beautiful. The transmission of Sufism over the centuries was actually done very similar to the way Jewish mysticism, Jewish esoteric knowledge was transmitted. It was transmitted through small little circles of people, of the initiated, and then from those small circles was disseminated and slowly transmitted to the masses until the masses became educated, and then schools of different thought. The transmission of their Kabbalah was very similar to ours. And I would, if we want, sorry, if we want to take a direct correlation, who was, if Kabbalah was kind of like a little, in the past, a little exclusive clubs of the initiated, and Kabbalah was not really taught in public, it was taught in private little circles from Rebbe to disciple, and very a very tight kind of group. And who opened that tightness of Kabbalah? Who opened it up in Jewish history? Who opened it up? Who said who said when kisheyafutzu ma'inotecha chutza, the great mystic who said, when my teachings are going to sprout out like water from a wellspring, like shooting out into the public so everybody can drink from it, that's when Mashiach is going to come. Who had the audacity to say that? The Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov.
Baal Shem Tov?
The Baal Shem Tov says when my esoteric when we are ready, it was always kind of a little closed club with exclusive. You had to have a little exclusive ticket to get in. And the Baal Shem Tov in 1730 said, when my teachings are going to be sprouting out and available to the masses, that's when a new consciousness is going to come. The equivalent of that kind of statement and that kind of sharing of esoteric knowledge was probably, I'm not, I am not the world's greatest expert in Sufism, but I can say that the equivalent of that statement of the Baal Shem Tovs in our tradition, the equivalent of the Baal Shem Tov in Sufism is probably Rumi. It's probably Rumi is the one who really opened up the confines of this exclusive esoteric enlightened knowledge and brought it to the streets. And then other great poets, Jubar and many others. So the similarities between the two are just so refreshing. And I want to point out another similarity that you might or might not be all that familiar with, that the realization of our own Jewish tradition. The Sufi tradition was not opposed to other religions. They, in fact, it's so exceptional. They in fact, the Sufi way was apply your specific religion, your specific tradition to the Sufi esoteric knowledge. In other words, they rightfully claimed, and we are going to see as we go deeper into some of this esoteric wisdom, that Sufism, I can say it this way, they viewed themselves as a somewhat of a tofu religion. Tofu meaning that tofu absorbs any flavor that it is cooked in, right? Tofu is like a sponge. It is neutral in essence, and because it is neutral, it is like parav. It is able to take on, if it is dipped in mushrooms and onions, it's going to take on that flavor. If it is mixed up with beef or any other kind of thing, it is going to take on the flavor of that element in which it is mixed. And I want you to ponder two kind of questions. Do you think that a tofu kind of religion is, number one, is it valid? Number two, is it effective? Just think about that for a moment. We have seen, I think we have seen throughout history that tofu religions have not really worked out. I don't know whether that's a sad commentary on civilization or a realistic one, but I seem to appreciate a religion, a tradition, like an esoteric kind of tradition that actually claims it is neutral. And if you want to remain in that neutral zone, Gesundheit, if you want to add some of your Jewish or your Christian or your Islamic tradition to our body of enlightenment, Gesundheit too. It's fine. And I say that I appreciate that because to an extent, and I would even say to a large extent, if we understand Judaism properly in its context, to a large extent, Judaism is also a tofu religion. You might not think that if you have visited any kind of denomination of denominational shul, you might not have thought that. But in essence, you would be wrong. You would be wrong. Because Judaism is a religion and tradition that has claimed from the beginning that the founder of Judaism is not going to exclusively be the founder of the Jewish religion, as Muhammad, let's say, is the founder and prophet of the Islamic religion, and Jesus is the founder and prophet of the Christian religion. Abraham is not viewed, even by the Torah, as that. Avraham is Av, his name is Av Hamon Goyim. You are to be the father of a multitude of nations. Abraham is the umbrella. Yes, he is the founder of a specific tradition, but he also serves as as a tofu prophet from the beginning. You are going to be the umbrella prophet for many nations. You are going to be a tofu Abraham to the nations. And if you think that the Jewish tradition throughout the ages was a specific thing, meant, yes, there was a specific focus on the Jewish stream, but ultimately the Jewish and specific stream that Judaism did take was then combined in the prophetic ages, when the prophets, specifically Isaiah the prophets, when Isaiah is able to say about the temple that we just commemorated yesterday, when he is able to say that the temple, the epicenter of Jewish life and Jewish sovereignty in its particular Jewish way, in its very particular Jewish way, and speaks about the temple, and when Isaiah is able to say, and we say this a multiplicity of times over Yom Kippur, Ki beiti beit tefila lechol ha'amim, that the temples in Jerusalem, the first and second, were built on Jewish land, were built by Jews under Jewish sovereignty. However, the purpose of the temple was ki beiti. The prophet is speaking in the name of God and saying, Ki beiti, this house of mine, this temple, Ki beiti beit tefila lechol ha'amim. My house is a house of worship for all people, for all peoples, for all religions. There is a sense within Judaism that you do not have to be Jewish to connect to divinity. I think we are the only religion that specifically does not and had a shtickle aversion to convincing others that our religion is the true religion. We make it difficult, actually, for converts, a shtickle difficult, a little too difficult. We make it difficult to convince others that our religion is the only way. We have specific wisdom principles that we would like and that we expect all peoples to adhere to. So our only qualification of any religion is the unity of God. That means one God, not many gods, not many forces. There is one source one source that provides life and energy to all. That belief is essential in Judaism and is actually, as we will find out, essential in Sufism. And we add one other, Judaism adds one other qualification. You do not have to be Jewish. You do not have to follow the Torah, the rituals of the Torah. You have to follow the 7 Noahide laws, which the 7 Noahide laws are basically the principles of the moral and ethical teachings contained in the Torah. They are the 7 Noahide laws are 7 principled encapsulations, summaries of all of the moral and ethical laws of the Torah. So in a sense, Judaism is a shtickle tofu religion. We do not expect people to adhere to Judaism. And we say, come join us, come join us. Our house of worship should be a house of worship for all. And in light of this, if that was like a chiddush to you, in light of this, then I would agree with you. I would agree with what is going through your mind, that yes, we have become way too stuck in our parochial Judaism. In a sense, we have to keep a sense of parochial Judaism, because if we let go of that, then our children and our children's children don't have an anchor. But I only wish that the anchor that we do give our children, that this teaching of the universality of Judaism and the openness of Judaism, I hope they get that message too. And in form, we have become way too parochial, way too parochial. Okay, Chevra, any comments, any questions?
Marcia had her hand up to your very specific question. Why do tofu religions not work? And she's going to give us a very succinct answer.
Yes, I got that, Kim. And I'm not, actually, because I don't have an answer. The question of whether Judaism is a tofu religion is, I could talk to Akiva about that for months, probably. My question for is more succinct. If Sufism is described the way you did as absorbing from all of these traditions that it recognizes, my first question is, since it's not a religion, does it have a God belief of some sort? And is absorbing all of it, I see a distinction between absorbing all of it and learning from all of it. In many classes, my teachers have said, take what you need from this and leave the rest, because not everything resonates with everybody. So are they just
Good.
increasing the pool of where and what they learn from?
It's Marcia. To answer succinctly, it's a combination of both taking and both taking and not taking, but yet absorbing, allowing one who is let's say a little bit Islamic, a little bit Christian, a little bit Jewish, like in other words, absorbing from the books of Moses, absorbing from the teachings of Jesus, absorbing from the Quran, absorbing what you want, and then being who you want according to your own will of entering into whatever tradition you have been born into or that you have accepted, and then adding to it the specific Sufic esoteric knowledge to that tradition. And as we go on, you as Jews are going to see how this is possible, because the mystical Sufi is an esoteric and mystical and quite universal body of wisdom that is actually can enhance a Jew's outlook, a Christian's outlook, and an Islamic outlook, and for that matter, any other tradition. It is a tofu religion that in essence and by nature is adding depth to whatever dish you own. Okay, so it is both taking and absorbing and excluding and it is a picking and choosing because it is speaking a type of mysticism, and you will see that Jewish mysticism that we have learned together is also in essence very neutral. Okay.
I'll take your word for that for now.
The only reason why it's not neutral is because of the language that we learn, that we use. Because if you break down the language, which we are going to do, we break down the language of Sufism and we break down the language of Jewish mysticism, they're talking about exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Language is creates the type of barrier that we falsely identify. Okay.
Back to you, Rabbi.
Okay. So I want to start off with I think Marcia had this in her question, but I want to start off with Sufism and Judaism. Consider number one. We have to start off. I think Marcia asked, what does Sufism have to say about God? Okay. What is that? You know, like what kind of God do they have? So I want to start off with something in. Are you familiar with the word dervish? The dervish in Sufism is a very prominent prop. It's a prop, but it's very prominent. The dervish in a lot of artwork in Sufism was this little being that had little wings, and that was like flying, and not only flying but dancing. They were called the dancing dervish, and they are very prominent in Sufi mythology and Sufi art and in ideology. So I'm going to speak more about the ideology. So we're going to learn a little bit about the dancing dervish and what is a dervish? What is a dervish? So the meaning of a dervish is really means this dancing little being who dances at a doorway, at a threshold. And the dervish stands at a doorway between, it's not only a doorway between two rooms, but the symbolism is that the dervish is dancing at a threshold, which means that it is dancing between one world, one realm, and another realm. Between slavery, the dervish dances at the threshold between slavery and freedom, between enlightenment and ignorance. And the dervish is standing at the doorway that either leads from one side to the other. Okay, so it really is an imagery. It really is an imagery. The dervish is someone is all of us, is all human beings. A dervish is someone who looks to the essential meaning of everything that he or she meets in life. A dervish is someone who never, ever yields to superficial appearances. So, friends, this is it's going to get deep, and now we're talking, Marcia. Now we're talking about like dervishes, and I guess we're talking nearly for the first time about dervishes, and people that have been speaking about dervishes for 50 years have a totally different impression, and our new impression is going to be a pure impression, and which I love. You don't get stuck into it. It's like getting stuck in the imagery of the Yetzer Hara, that little impish character on my right side, and the Yetzer HaTov, that little imp. And in Christianity, the devil here, and the beautiful looking angel here, and this is the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer HaTov. We get all screwed up by those imageries. So let's keep it nice and pure. Okay, Kim, you.
I was just going to ask if you could differentiate the dervish from a tzaddik. as you're talking about.
Okay, we're gonna, yeah, that's what I'm gonna get to.
Okay.
That's exactly what I'm gonna get to. So a dervish is anyone, because in life we do dance at the threshold of things. we're always dancing at the threshold of things. And the dervish is one who never yields to superficial appearance. So we have to understand that beyond whatever it is that we know, friends, this is going to get deep. Beyond whatever it is that we know, realize that there's an origin to that thing that we know that is unknown. That is unknown. That is the motto of the dervish. And this is going to be a teaching from original Sufis. If I were to ask you, where did you come from? You might say that you came from your mother. And where did she come from? She came from her mother. And where did her mother come from? She came from her mother. But however far back you trace it, eventually you will come to a point where you will have to say, I don't know. This, I don't know, is actually another name for God. I love that. That's the end of the actual teaching. I love that. I love that. It's another description. It's another angle of how to perceive the divine, how to perceive God. You know how to perceive God? Every I don't know, it is God. In other words, if we go back, if we exclude superficiality from our mental construct, and we insist on going back to essence, and in a certain way, when we go back, we end up with ich weiß nicht. I don't know. I don't only not know. I don't, even if I knew a little bit, I don't know how to describe it. It's indescribable. It's ineffable. Oh, says Sufism. That is a working definition of divinity. And you know what that reminds me of? I mean, I have said this a multiplicity of times, that is exactly one of the definitions that the Zohar, the grand book of Jewish mysticism, how the Zohar describes God. The Zohar describes God in two words: either Ma, the what of the universe, or me, the who of the universe. The Zohar describes God not in definitive definitions, but in question marks. Ma is the name of God in the Zohar. Me is the name of God in the Zohar. Now, if that's not a great chiddush and a great way of evening out and universalizing our perception of divinity, and even giving us permission to call God the who, the what of the universe. I think that is a tremendous opening. So this Sufi teaching is saying the I don't know the origins of where I come from. I come from a mother, and that mother had a mother, and that mother had a mother. But if you go all the way back, it has to lead to some sort of I don't know. And that I don't know is a name for God. And that name for God in the Sufi tradition is, they don't call it I don't know, they call it origin. The origin. And origin sounds a whole lot like Bereshit. And origin sounds a whole lot like the word I like to, out of the many words in Jewish tradition that I like to use, is source with a capital S. Mekor HaChayim, the source of life. God's name is Mekor HaChayim, the source, the origin of life, that point of origin. And that point of origin, can we describe it? Do we know it? Yeah, we can feel it, we can think about it. Do we really know it? We really have to say, no, I don't know it. I don't know it, but I can feel it. I can feel that there is an origin. So this idea of origin, the idea of I don't know, however much we might know, however much we might know, there is always, so beautifully, we have to welcome this, there is always going to be an X. There's always going to be an X, which is an unknown entity that we have to attach to our perception of God. Let it be so. Let it be so. Like I told many a time, as Heschel said, I don't want to understand. I don't want to understand my God. If I understood my God, that dafka would not be my God. I want to be in a place of unknowing in my relationship to divinity, into my relationship to the origin. I want that X. I need that question mark. If I don't have that question mark, man, do I not believe in that God. So the unknown, we have to welcome the unknown origin from which everything comes, says Sufism, and says the Jewish mystics. Now, friends, you know how everything got really screwed up? So that's mamish like the purest kind of perception of divinity. How things got really screwed up was a religious person is actually going to begin with an assertion that this unknown origin, once I introduce proper names and introduce definitive names, I am going to use Sufi names, and I'm going to, whenever I use a Sufi name, I'm always gonna complement it with the Jewish name. Okay, I'm not here to convert anyone to Sufism. I am here to use Sufism and Jewish mysticism as a co-partnership in common mystical thinking. So I'm going to use both. I'm not going to. Okay, so where things got really, where we got, as human beings, where we got trapped, is that a religious person actually is going to assert that this unknown origin, this unknown source, Makor HaChayim, this source of everything, exists, and that this source creates everything and is the giver of everything, and such a person is then going to be satisfied, worshiping that God. And friends, that is the beginning of religion. And that is the beginning of all of the trappings, all of the tribalisms, all of the superiorities, all of the one-upmanship, all of the narrowing of visions that every single religion has trapped themselves into. They all start believing in that pure sense of origin, of source. And then it trickles down into a type of tribalism, a type of traditions that start imprisoning that original idea. And that is kind of okay, because each culture is going to have its own way, but it trickled down throughout history that the trappings, the color, the clothing, the garments, the outer, the superficial of each religion started building up and creating a type of armor that disallowed any other color, any other this. And we started becoming, and we still are, we started becoming mamish tribal about our religion. We think tribal is an ancient word. It isn't. It isn't. We are contemporary, modern, tribal people. And if we look at ourselves, we might catch ourselves in our own tribalism. But a dervish will not be satisfied with worshiping God merely on the say-so and on the traditionalism and tribalism of others. You know what a dervish says? Let's go find it. Let's go find it. As the manifestation of an it is possible, then the origin also is possible. And the dervish is going to go after the origin and not be diverted by anything superficial. It's going to go after the source from which origin is emanating, and that mamash reminds me that idea. So the dervish is the mystic. That's the dervish. Kim said before that the dervish was the tzaddik, but both would be kind of correct. But I like more the definition that a dervish is just someone who is simply enlightened enough to see past the trappings of religion, and is going to go for the light emanating from the origin, from the source, using tradition and using this to the extent that it helps him or her find the origin, but never succumbing to being entrapped by tradition, by the clothing, by the garment. Never keeping your eye off of the ball. So I just want to go on. I want to go on for a moment. Another Sufi teaching that actually is right on. Suppose you're sitting in a room, and the room is mamish pitch black. Then all of a sudden you see a tiny point of light on the floor. Close your eyes, imagine it. You're sitting in pitch black. All of a sudden, a tiny point of light on the floor appears. If you see that point of light on the floor, you will somehow know that there must be a hole in a door or a window or in the ceiling to allow that tiny little beam of light in. And if you can place your eye where the light is falling, you'll see the light coming in somehow from the outside of the room. That little beam of light is going to then carry you to the origin of the light, correct? You're going to follow the light to its origin. If there are 100 holes, let's say in the ceiling, there will be 100 points, 100 beams of light. But that does not mean that they come from 100 different lights. No matter how many million points of lights there may be, the light will be one and the same. And if you close one hole and open up another hole, the light from the first hole won't be transferred to the second one. Rather, a new light will appear from the same source. The dervish, the mystic, in us yearns and quests to find the original point from which the light is projected. The mystic is not satisfied with seeing the beam of light on the floor, the beam of light invading the dark of the room. The mystic in us, and I think to whatever extent that yearning, that quest is in you, that is going to be the extent that the dervish in you, the mystic in you exists, is that feeling of I need to go, I need to be unified, I need to experiment, I need to journey into the unknown origin of that light. And by definition, friends, it is quite an impossible journey, isn't it? Because we know at the end of this journey, it is somehow only going to result in a higher level of I don't know. But that higher level of I don't know is what the mystic is looking for. Is the fulfillment of what the dervish, what the mystic is looking for. I don't want to know. I just want a higher, more sophisticated, more enlightened, more fulfilled I don't know in my life. So you either have it or you don't. You either view that journey as you must be frickin' crazy, or I really get that. I really get the idea of a more a more comprehensive, a more enlightened, I don't know. So I see some people laughing, crying. I don't know. I don't know what. But and anything to be said.
Jabri has patiently kept her hand up, then Joyce, and then Sandra Poslins.
So, Rabbi, good. Hello to everyone. Remember last week, Rabbi, I had said to you and had reported that we wouldn't really be able to understand everything in our lives until we know the answer to the question, who am I? What am I? So it's the same thing this week. It goes back to that source, who am I? And it's a mystery. It's a mystery. But I do believe that if one meditates and looks inside your own self for the answer, within that your own self is not the complete answer, but clues. There are clues that come up. So the who am I and what am I is very, very important.
We are going to get to that. We are talking about that.
Yes.
And we are right now, depending on the time. Kim, how much time do we have left, please?
22 minutes.
Okay, so we are going to get into that right now. I wanted to establish that a commonality that it is beyond a doubt. It is beyond a doubt that Jewish mysticism and Sufism begin. They both begin, and there is an absolute insistence. An absolute insistence in beginning with the idea that we have to, our starting point for any personal journey has to include what we call in English a God, a Godhead, a divinity. In Jewish mysticism, a source of all, that we in our thinkings, basically guys, there has to be a recognition and acknowledgement that we are not the end all. We are, in the words of the Psalms, we are, and which we are going to find out like very soon, we are like gods, but we are not. There has to be an acknowledgement. We are not gods. You know who said, "I am a god"? You know how many schmucks over history said, "I am a god," and you know what actually turned out to be? All of those that said, "I am a god," turned out to be horrible people. Pharaoh was the first one that was so consumed with his own origin, and never recognized anything outside of himself. That's why Pharaoh is in our tradition a Gurnished. You don't have the humility to say that there is a possibility of something transcendent of your own little self. So there's a beautiful insistence and a commonality in Sufism and Judaism that says that is number one, a recognition and an acknowledgement of I would say of nothing less than transcendence. There is something that is transcendent of little old me. If you can say that, then Judaism considers you a monotheist and the beginning of a human being that is not insane, not totally consumed with self. So that was establishing that beautiful commonality of that's where the origins of the insistence within Jewish theology and Jewish ideology that if you are a monotheistic religion, and Judaism says, if you are a monotheistic religion and acknowledge and recognize that there is or makor hachayim, that there is something transcendent of you, and that's such a vague and right, it's so vague. But if there is that recognition, that right away makes you into a monotheistic and really can these days. I mean, this was established centuries ago by Jewish wisdom teachers, that if you can say that you are a monotheistic religion. Today, as things morph throughout history, I don't even, I'm not 100% convinced. I'm not 100% convinced. Officially, on paper, Christianity and Islam are monotheistic religions, but in reality, are they? I've said it many a time. Christians that believe that every single human being, if they do not believe in the Son going through the Father, you are excluded from heaven. You are excluded nearly. You are and in Islam. If you don't believe in the prophecy of Muhammad, you're an infidel, and you're deserving of persecution and even death, right? I mean, so how religions have morphed from the medieval ages, when Jewish sages says, it really doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter who your prophet is. If you believe in origin, in source, you're a monotheistic religion. But the way things have morphed, they have become, like really meshiga, really insane how things have become.
Joyce has her hand up.
Yeah, sure.
And Sandra might still have the question. No, she's good. It's just Joyce before you go back to.
Rabbi, I love your teachings on this. Thank you so much. And may the force be with you. Or source. And I have a comment, and then I have a question. My comment is, my Rebbe, our Rebbe, goes to Jerusalem, where everybody learns to be more Jewish, and you become more of a universalist because you were already more Jewish. So that's interesting to me to observe. And my question is, you said something about the art of the Sufis showing dervishes, and that means that they are allowed to draw human beings in their art, unlike Islam or Judaism? Does that mean, is the question.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Like Judaism? Judaism, we're allowed to draw human beings.
Yeah, I guess in the synagogue is. But you're probably right, pointing me in the answer, because probably there are no pictures of dervishes in a worship place.
Yeah. In other words, we in Jewish tradition, we stayed away from drawing human depictions because we under the influence of Christianity, we didn't want to confuse anyone that our God is in any way depicted in human form. Whereas in Christianity, right, that was done like all the time. So we had an aversion, but we don't have an aversion of drawing human beings.
Right.
Just in synagogue, when we're talking, addressing ourselves to an invisible, ineffable God, we don't want to. It was a matter we don't want to confuse. But Joyce, dervishes were not to be confused with gods. Dervishes were human. We're humans. We're mystics.
Right.
We're people that were standing at the threshold of, am I really going to be stuck? That's why the root word of dervish is threshold. I'm at the threshold of choosing between the superficiality of this world, or am I? Do I have a propensity towards origin? You know.
Right. Yeah.
And right now we're going to start getting into. We're gonna actually start getting away from a little bit from origin, but I had to start with that because that's principle number one that Sufism and Kabbalah and Jewish Kabbalah have in common. There has to be a common acknowledgement of the X factor, of the I don't know factor, the God factor, the divine factor, the transcendent factor. That has to be the beginning. That has to be placed in the beginning. And now we're going to go away from a little bit. We're going to divert a little bit from that, from the origin factor, from the source factor. And we're going to discuss where Sufism and mysticism, in their focus on the soul, literally on neshama level, that Sufism calls, we call it neshama. Sufism calls it the essential self. The essential self. How, and especially those that were in the Chabad, in the Tanya class, and remember some of the principles, we are going to see how Sufism from origin with a capital O, source, Makor HaChaim, then kind of digresses in how origin and neshama, or essential self, how they are inextricably interconnected in a way where we as human beings, we're now on the earth level. We as human beings, if and when we address our deeper nature, our deepest nature, we are capable of a kind of voluntary attention, of a voluntary kind of focusing. We are able to train and tap into our deeper nature, where we are absolutely in touch and in control of our inner will. I'm talking about all forces within human nature, that there's a certain connection that has to be made, that we actually are able to touch the place of our inner will. And then also to touch the place where we are able and capable of self-transcendence, of moving outside of ourselves, and kind of being able on a soul level to create a kind of wisdom where that we are able to elevate ourselves and rise above ourselves, and we have a view. We are able to view our smaller selves from a higher place and get a really good look at ourselves. And it's a matter that's what we call, what Sufism calls, and also Jewish mysticism calls, self-transcendence. To rise above ourselves and to be viewing ourselves from a higher place. From a higher place. And that's also the occupation of the dervish. The dervish always wants to be not seeing it from below to above, but rather from above below. So next week we'll talk about. So I'll leave you with this question. How are we able to nurture and educate? Nurture and educate such a soul. Assume for yourselves, friends, assume for yourselves that within your nature, you have a deeper nature where you are able to actually voluntarily, at will, switch on a kind of super focus, a super awareness when you want, you are able to exercise. We all exercise our will in whatever we do, any from small to large. We all exercise our will, but there's also a capacity within our deeper selves to exercise a will that is like super laser focused without distraction, like boom. We are able to conjure that up. And we are also, if we have opportunity for in momentary, we can be doing it more than momentary. We have a capacity within us of self-transcendence, of flying higher than we think. Of experiencing things that are over and above our normal experience. We are all capable of self-transcendence. So the question is that we're going to address next week: how do we actually nurture and educate our souls? If that is the capacity of the soul, how, what taka, if someone says, I'm in, I want in, I do not want, the big mistake we are making these days, we are educating ourselves, and God knows the younger generations, we are educating our young people in great ways. But one thing that we are forgetting about, and that I am very nervous and very apprehensive about, we are educating them. They are becoming computer minds, computer savvy, and one thing that I think might be sacrificed in all of that is the question: how are we nurturing? How are we educating our the souls of our young people? I think something is we better address that. And some people are addressing it. Some people are addressing it, but I don't think enough are, because the question of how we as adults, if I ask you that question, I just know that every single one of you do you. That, I think that's why you're here on Zoom. Do you or do you not want to find ways to nurture and educate the deeper nature of your souls? And I think every person would say, I'm in, Akiva, I'm into that. So we're going to discover different aspects, different techniques that Sufism and that Jewish mysticism, how I'm not going to have all the answers, because I think all the answers were given through tradition. I think we're going to have to be a little original, but we certainly can take some landmark principles of how we nurture and educate our souls, and that's the business I think that we ought to be as little dervishes. That's the business that we ought to be focused on.
Rabbi Akiva, I think everyone in this room is focused on it.